In almost no time at all, you can begin your game development journey and develop your first game by recreating a very basic Pong clone. Be sure to tune in to see exactly how we build this prototype in just a few short minutes. We're going to start off here by creating a basic 2D scene and defining basically our main game menu. So I'll use a Node 2D. I'll call this game, and then we're going to add in all the pieces that actually make up this game. So we need to add in a color rectangle, and this will be serving as our background. Now what I like to do is I'll turn on my grid snapping, and that's just going to allow me to drag this thing all the way out to full size without me having to actually adjust anything. And then we can make this pitch black, because that's just going to serve as our background for the game. The other thing that we'll need to create is that middle dividing line that separates the two halves. So we'll do the exact same thing. We'll create another color rectangle. I'll leave it as white, but this time we're going to want to change the size and the shape of it. So maybe I'll go with 10 wide, and we're going to make this the full length of our screen, so 648 pixels, because we're using the default settings for this project. From here, we'll want to set this to the center of our screen. So the width of this is 1152. So we'll do 1152 divided by 2, which will put it almost in the center. And then we just need to subtract half of our width of that rectangle. And now we have our dividing bar dead center. And we're slowly on our way to making a very basic Pong game. For those of us who are familiar with Pong, we know that we have the top border and the bottom border being solid walls that the game is going to bounce the ball off of. And then the left and right hand side are our goals, like we would have to score a point. This is going to be fairly simple for us to set up as well. So we'll just go ahead and add in a static body 2D. And this is going to represent the borders, so the top and the bottom borders. And then inside of this, we'll want to define a collision shape. So we can use the collision shape 2D. Inside the actual shape for it, we could do a rectangle and draw it all the way out across, then we'll just have some leftovers up at the top. But I like to use the world boundary shape 2D. Now, if we look at this, we're going to see that it is just an infinite line that goes across horizontally, and the collisions are going to come from the top. What we want this to do is flip down so the collisions are coming from the bottom. So over inside of our shape, we can set the normal to just be in the positive one direction. By default, these are going to have two-way collisions, but I do like to set this up so that way it's just facing the right direction. And then we can rename this one to top border, and we'll do the same thing. We'll add in one more collision shape, set it to the same world boundary. In this case, we're going to leave it at -1, but we want to set our transform and our Y position to be 648. And that's going to set it now down to the bottom, facing up, and we can just rename this to our bottom border. So very quickly, this is coming together. And the final thing we really need to do to finish setting up our scene in air quotes is to put those left and right borders on. Since we are thinking ahead into how this is actually going to be functioning down the line, we're going to use, instead of a static body, which would just give us that bounce off, we're going to be using an area 2D. Now, the area 2D node is going to allow us to do a couple things. The first thing is it's going to detect when other objects are going to be entering it or exiting it. So we can define just a basic area 2D. And then inside of this, it's going to want a collision shape. So we need to put a shape 2D or polygon 2D so we have something to detect those collisions. So just like we did before, we can grab our collision shape 2D. In this case, I do like to use the rectangle. And then we can just start to draw this and drag it out. So I'll just make it so it's off of our screen to the top and the bottom and give it its shape. With our left goal created, we want to do the exact same thing on the other side, so we can repeat the process and we can add in our area 2D. And then underneath that area 2D, we can add our collision shape. This shape will be the exact same thing. It'll be a rectangle. So I'll just drag this over We don't have to be perfect with this, just good enough that we can use in the future. And the final thing I might want to do here is just to rename these. So we have left goal, we have our right goal, and then I'll go through and rename my color rectangles as well. So we have our background, and then finally this other one is going to be our midfield line. And just like that, we have our pretty basic setup that we're going to be able to use in the next section to actually build out and flesh out our game and add the rest of our functionality to.